He's helping me film like outside area. É uma mulher loira tampouco ali. Yes, probably. Yes.
Yep, that's the other piece.
The I do have the one that you were talking about. Wait.
Yeah, this one, right? But we could like use both.
Also have this one that could also work, but HDMI as well, right?
Jo, aš turiu čia kalbą. Is it good? Like this? I'm moving like this closer? Like this? Here. Okay, perfect. 1 second, I will... Like this may be better, yeah? It's not in my face. Yeah? Good? Okay. Tai negalima, nes jau čia per toli dabar. Yeah? Okay. All right, wonderful. So how do I switch on the presentation and then somebody says 1, 2, 3, start? Okay, I can start. Yeah? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, good. All right. Good morning and welcome to the world of DAOs. Well, you're here, so you're in the right place, you're in the right time, and you're with the right people. You've come here because there was a reason. You were driven by a purpose. So, yesterday was quite a nice day. It was quite a nice start of a Lisbon Blockchain Week. And Felipe has said that we should let our ideas flow. These are my ideas. This is what comes to my mind when I think about DAOs. I invite you to have a look about this. obviously DAOs, they stand for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. In concept, everything that is governed is ruled by code. So all the human interactions within machines, everything is decided by code. But I think there is much more to DAOs. Throughout the history, people have organized themselves always. There were communities, not only people actually, all mammals, animals, plants, fungi, everything and everyone who has similar, who has shared similar values or similar features, they gather together, same energy, concentrate. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that we are here in this place because we have something in common: ideology, passion, common values. We have had many types of organizations. There were tribes, there were countries, there are governments, there are guilds, there are clubs, anything really that unites people, right? Right now, we're being defined by geography, perhaps also defined by nationality, by the food that we like. Obviously, vegetarians, they like to hang out with vegetarians, and some people have even very strong opinions about this. Crypto people tend to unite. So we concentrate, we congregate according to what drives us together. And DAOs. So according to Bankless, which I'm sure all of you know, DAOs are programmable organizations of people. Now, also, I want to ask a question. Is it programmable organizations of people alone? Or will we have machines also programmed into some of the DAOs? Will they also have a say? Will they also have a stake in the DAOs and how DAOs governance is made? So, why the world of DAOs is different? Right now, we have been organized by governments mainly, I would say, that are defined by our geographies. It worked for the period of time that we lived. We were born, majority of us were born in this kind of a system. But there's evolution. You know, the things that worked before, they don't work anymore. Or we need to update, we need to upgrade. Digitalization, as well as COVID, has really changed our values, has really gave us a different perception. Although obviously DAOs were born earlier than COVID, there's a trend of evolution. Digitization and similar common values require people to concentrate in different forms of organization. We need different forms of decision-making, different forms of consensus, rather than one government that is defined by country and political parties telling us what to do. You know, it is clear for us that it doesn't work. We don't accept this kind of imposing of certain rules. Yes, we're happy to play by the rules, but perhaps we want to redefine them. You know, our values, everything has changed. So, what I would like to invite you to do today is to have a look at these balloons as these little thoughts. So, what do you want to do in life? What kind of values do you bring? What kind of ideology do you have? What kind of a society can help you to achieve your goals and your way of living, your lifestyle, how you want to do, like tribes they used to do before? Felipe yesterday said a very interesting quote saying, being a DAOist is giving yourself a permission to decide what comes next. So previously and right now, governments, they decide what we can do or we cannot do. Organizations where we work tell us what we can do, what we cannot do. And DAOs that enable a total different interaction among each other, and also interaction within ourselves as well. We can open our minds a little bit more than we were allowed to, perhaps. So yes, I would like to invite you to think about this, to think about what drives you, what kind of people you want to be together, what kind of goals you have, what kind of passions, and what you can do for yourself and for the society to make this world a better place. I am myself from DAO. If you're interested to learn what we do, please come and talk to me during the day. Thank you very much. I wish you great energy. Definitely this energy that you brought you here. So enjoy it, and thank you for attention.
Hi guys, I'm Živko. I'm founder of EnterDAO, which is a DAO founded with the mission to build products enabling new markets within the Web3 metaverse economy. And I'm also part of LimeChain, which is a development company. Since 2017, we've been building all kinds of stuff on Ethereum and also other chains. Today we're going to talk about building products in a DAO-first way. We'll start with what it means, what's the difference between building products in a more centralized way and decentralizing later, and also give you some in-practice insights of how that works and some insights from some of the projects that we've been involved in over the past 1 year, and of course from EnterDAO. So first and foremost, obviously, GM to everyone, or bomb GM. GM. DAO first means that a DAO is launched and sometimes more often than not funded before the core product of a project is even built. And there's a great article by Kane from Synthetics called Raising Capital or DAO First Capital Formation, which is great and I highly recommend it. DAO first, launch a DAO first, build the products after the DAO is launched. The community gets to have a say in the whole process. So there's constant feedback from the community. But more importantly, the community gets to have an upside from day one, in most cases through the token of the DAO. On the other hand, DAO later, build the products first, decentralize later. Community gets rewarded retrospectively. We're quite familiar with this model. We've seen most of the bigger projects, Compound, Uniswap, etc. They build the products, amass users, and as they grow, they decentralize progressively. So they launch a DAO afterwards, do retrospective airdrops, etc. The goal of this presentation is not to convince everyone that you should go DAO first. It just provides an insight of what DAO first means and how it works. And there's obviously pros and cons to both. There are pros to going DAO first, and there are pros to going DAO later and decentralizing at a later stage. The pros of going DAO first, obviously the whole project is decentralized from day one or somewhat decentralized, meaning that, why somewhat? Because obviously in the beginning the founders and the investors hold most of the governance power anyway, and as the project grows, the governance gets progressively more decentralized. But DAO first also means community first, meaning that the core community gets to have a say and upside on the products that the DAO is building. This also means that the community is more engaged and provides both feedback and kind of like its own marketing, just because they have like upside on the whole thing. And last but not least, obviously DAO first, everything that we're building is open source, meaning that you don't have to spend months building a DAO or the tooling around it. You can take, there's like different governance models that you can take. You can take the Compound style of governance. We're using the Barnbridge style of governance called abrogation. So there are different models, and all of this is open source, so you can pick and choose and go with whatever you like. But DAO first also has its cons. Somewhat decentralized from day one means that you're expected to act and behave and get governed like a DAO from day one. So the community should be involved in everything, and this sometimes can have an impact on the speed of decision making. And when you're building products and you want to go to market as fast as you can, this could be a factor. With DAO first also comes token first, meaning that the project has a token, whether it's a governance token or utility token, from day one. And this could be a distraction. Like we all know that every community is full of degens. There's a lot of noise, and this could be a big distraction. And also, if you have, let's say, a new yield farming program that we're going to talk about later, this can also affect the token price. And while it's easy to, for me, it's somewhat easy to focus on building and basically detached from all the token noise, this could be a distraction for many people. And last but not least, even though everything is open source, you still need to build a DAO. Like you can take something, of course, but you still need to build a front end, a UI, and adapt it. So it will take, for us, it took like 2 or 3 weeks of development just to set up the DAO, the staking module, and everything. So it still takes a bit of time, and this usually means taking time from developing the core product. How does this work in practice? So we've been involved with, before into DAO, we've been involved in a bunch of projects that are using the same model or framework that I'm going to talk a bit in bigger detail. Barnbridge, Universe, Enter DAO, and most recently League DAO. Barnbridge is a gigabrain DeFi project that basically does fixed income derivatives for hedging market risk. Universe is a decentralized NFT marketplace, and Enter DAO, we're building 2 products for the metaverse economy, a land marketplace and a Steam-like product for Web3 games even before. We started building this before Valve banned Web3 games, so it's kind of great timing for us. And League DAO is a decentralized fantasy sport platform, and the common thing between all these 4 projects is that they use the same DAO model. In most cases, it's the same code with minor tweaks. So it's essentially the same framework that I'm going to talk about, and it has worked quite well. We've amassed like a substantial community, and so have the other projects. Like Barnbridge is the oldest of these projects. It's 1 year old, and has 2 or 3 products out there in DeFi that are actually bringing real value. And across all these 4 projects, I think there has been like $1 billion in yield farming volume in total. So how does this work? Launch DAO and funding. What we do is, in our case, we've set up a launch DAO in Aragon to get the whole thing funded. From that point on, and basically get the initial community. From that point on, we set up yield farming and the DAO, the public DAO. So launch DAO is kind of like the seed DAO that is queued at a later stage. We built a DAO module and a yield farming program to onboard key communities. In our case, like Enter is working on metaverse stuff, so we're having yield farming programs with some gaming or Web3 metaverse tokens like Decentralized, Axie, Sandbox, and a bunch of others, Illuvium, etc., etc. We've also, to get the token in the hands of the community, in addition to the yield farming, we've incentivized liquidity on a DEX, in our case Sushi, but in other cases there could also be a token sale or LBP on Balancer, which I think is a great way. We just haven't done it because we've decided not to go the token sale route, mostly for legal reasons, or for the sake of speed, because like it takes time to set up the legal structure properly, etc. And there's obviously, in addition to the yield farming, there's a DAO staking module and an activation threshold, which means that people can stake their tokens in the DAO, and there's a threshold. In our case, is 5% of the token supply. I'm going to provide a screenshot later. But there's like a 5% of the total supply which needs to be staked in order for the public DAO to be activated. Which means that once it's activated, like for the smart contract, the treasury is then transferred to the DAO. People can start governance proposals, and we get the whole governance wheel spinning. And last but not least, and while all this is happening, we're obviously building our products. And the great thing is that the community gets to have a say in everything. 2 quick screenshots. So this is how the yield farming looks like. I don't think this is crucially important for any project, so just sharing it. But I think this is more important, which is basically the governance module. And you can see that there is a activation threshold. Once it reaches the amount to be staked, then the DAO is activated, and the community gets to govern everything. This project, not this project, but this framework obviously is not perfect as any other framework. We're still in very early stages of DAOs and Web3s, but we've seen that it works with certain degree of success with all the projects that we mentioned. There are a couple of fundamental flaws that we've experienced and could be improved for anyone that wants to basically adopt this framework or tweak it. First and foremost, there has been proven to be a disconnect between the yield farming and the DAO staking, which means that on the one hand, it's great to have a yield farming program to basically distribute the token for in the community. On the other hand, this could have like a negative impact on the token. For example, there are a lot of people that are just in for the farming. For example, in our case, which had like people depositing $23 million in sushi tokens, stake them for a couple weeks, get out, dump our tokens, and that's about it. So there's obviously a disconnect, and there are mechanisms that can be used to basically incentivize staking the DAO in a better way directly from the farming. And the second thing is that we've obviously mentioned that we decided to incentivize liquidity just for the sake of speed and not having the legal headache, but I think that a liquidity bootstrapping pool could be a better way of getting the token in the hands of the community if a project decides to do a token sale. That's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have, and if not, we can just move on. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the DAOist talk on Celo. I'm Yaz. Nice to meet you all. My talk for today is called The Godfather of DAO, Celo, and we're going to talk about the community fund on Celo's on-chain protocol. So a little bit about me. I work at Celo, which is focused exclusively on the Celo protocol. I do developer relations, focused a lot on the protocol side. So anything with validator, governance, anything related to the core technology on a layer one solution is I try to do a lot of the work there on the developer relations side. So nice to meet you all. So here's the agenda for today. First, we're going to briefly go over what is Celo. And after that, we're going to talk about what is the on-chain community fund for Celo. And we're going to talk about the different CGP proposals impacting it. CGP stands for Celo Governance Proposal. And then we're going to talk about all the different proposals like the Valora Saving Campaign, the Celo Community Fund, the Community Gift Appreciation, and the Celo Ecosystem Treasury. And finally, we're going to talk about the future of the on-chain community fund. So what is Celo's mission? So Celo's mission, where you have the most mission-aligned people working on Celo, the mission is about building financial system that creates the conditions of prosperity for everyone. And we do that by, like, the feature of Celo as a blockchain is it's a layer 1 network. It's EVM compatible, so it was a fork of Geth from a long time ago. It's a proof-of-stake EVM network. It has, like, one of the coolest thing about it is, like, the mobile-first approach. So we have a really cool phone identity protocol that allows people to activate or tie their phone number to their identity when sending payments. And then we have a really ultralight clients, really good for, like, emerging markets mobile clients. And finally, Celo on a layer 1 level has governance. So people on the layer 1 can submit a governance proposal and have the network vote for it. There's also an on-chain reserve, which is used for the stability mechanism. And finally, we got the community fund, which is the whole talk going to be mostly about the community fund. So yeah, let's talk about the on-chain community fund. So what is the on-chain community fund? So currently, the fund has 8 million Celo. Celo is about, like, let's say between $5 and $6. It's about 40 million, USD worth. And there's also 2 million Celo Euro in the on-chain community fund. Celo Euro is one of our stable coins. It's like one of the more recent native stable coins on Celo. So every epoch reward, 25% of that allocation goes to the Celo community fund. So the epoch rewards happen every 24 hours. The rewards go to the validators, stakers, and 25% of that allocation every 24 hours goes to the community fund, which is like a really big amount, right? So far, we had 5 governance proposals that have been submitted for utilizing or modifying the community fund. 3 of those proposals have passed. 1 has been withdrawn due to some controversy. The other one is being finalized for submission in the next few weeks, and we're going to talk about all the different ones. We're going to cover all these in detail. The first one was the activation of the community fund. It passed. The appreciation gifts and distribution of CUSD to the holders. One proposal we're going to talk about was, like, reducing the allocation from 25 to 5. It was withdrawn. And finally, we're going to talk about the ecosystem treasury, which, so like an overview, CGP14, so we talked briefly about phone identities. So one of the wallets worth, per Celo allows you to, if you ever played around with Venmo or Revolut, is similar in the way where you can text money to your friends using only their phone number, assuming they, tied their phone identity to their, wallet. And with this approach, with CGP14, there was an allocation of 200,000 Celo from the community fund to incentivize more people to save their CUSD. So the more CUSD you save, the more you get reward in Celo. So that was the first proposal. It passed. It's still, like, going on to this day. If you save using the wallet, you'll get rewards, and it's all coming from the community fund. CGP17 is, they titled, that is the first multi-sig that is actually, working on the an allocation of the community fund. They call it CCF, so there's an overlap in naming. CCF stands for Celo Community Fund, so there has always been a confusion between which is the first community fund and which is the multi-sig one that came next, right? So this was an allocation of 600,000 Celo. Their main objective has been, there's a Celo Foundation grant program, but the grant program is not as fast in issuing grants necessarily due to a lot of submissions. So the CCF's goal using an allocation of the community fund was we can replicate that model much faster in distribution of funds to all the teams the Celo Foundation approves. CGP20 was done, it was like a 2 of 3 multi-sig by community members. Basically, the whole idea is there was a lot of cool people in Celo, and they wanted to show thanks to those people, and they want to give them a gift of like 100 Celo each. So they allocated 15,000 Celo to a 2 of 3 multisig, and that was CGP 20. The most controversial one, CGP 35, reduced the allocation of the community fund from 25% to 5%. The main reason for that was we went over, right now it's roughly 8 million Celo in the reserve, in the community fund. A lot of that is untouched money, like it's not being distributed, the capital is not being allocated where it needs to be. And their argument was, the proposers, by reducing the amount, we can, distribute it better elsewhere. But it received a lot of pushback from the community because Celo is like over 1 year old, and it didn't get the opportunity it needed to actually distribute that fund. So after a bit of back and forth, community calls and stuff, the proposal was withdrawn in the hopes that there will be more proposals to come to, allocate some of that fund. Finally, CGP 38, Celo Ecosystem Treasury. So I'm one of the proposals of this proposal, just a heads up. We're a 5 of 9 multisig system. The whole idea of the ecosystem treasury is to aggressively distribute money where it's needed, especially in emerging markets. And one of the models that we're really interested in is a DAO of DAOs model, especially for emerging markets. And we'll cover that really briefly in a bit. It addresses the concern of CGP 35, which was, reducing the community fund from 25 to 5 because there's not enough capital allocation. The Treasury tries to focus on 4 different tiers: emerging markets, research and development, radical experimentation, and supporting the Celo crypto community. So DAOs from the Treasury. So the whole idea here is creating opportunities in emerging markets using Web3 tooling, right? So there are 3 target countries that the Treasury wants to focus on. The most important one currently is the Brazil DAO. So the team right now, me and the rest of the people on the multisig, we're trying to work with folks in Brazil. We have a lot of good contacts in terms of creating a DAO specifically for Brazil, and allocating like between 300 to 500 thousand USD to be folks local on the ground that who have a reputation in Brazil from the Web3 community, to start voting on the best use of those funds within Brazil in terms of allocation of the money. So Brazil right now is the biggest market right now in Celo in terms of how many folks are really interested in payments. So we're very excited specifically about Brazil DAO in terms of like activating one of the most important emerging markets that we're seeing. And then because it's really focused on emerging markets, we identified 2 other countries in different continents that we also want to activate. Nigeria DAO is one really important one. We have folks on the ground because we work exclusively with emerging markets. People in Lagos and elsewhere where we want to, help out and, allow them to determine their own governance. And one of the key things here that is really important to highlight is we want governance on these DAOs to be done in their own local languages rather than in English, because there's a huge gap in terms of folks who know English, but they understand Web3 to some degree. They like to mess with that technology and stuff. So for me, at least, and for a lot of other people, for example, for the Brazil DAO, having it in Portuguese is super important. The Treasury would be able to help out, guide, but the best part about that kind of governance, if it's done in Portuguese, as an example, it's great because it impacts people within Brazil, not necessarily the larger ecosystem. And we're also doing that model for the Philippines. Philippines is another huge market for us in Asia, and with the rise of Axie Infinity, Philippines is an important sector. The whole idea is, the mandate is, focus either on payment solution that either utilize Celo for the emerging markets or improving, Web3 development tools creating the conditions for developers to, prosper and, to grow and stuff. One of the biggest challenges, if you really want to target emerging markets, is a lot of people are like, oh, I want to invest in emerging market entrepreneurs, right? But the funnel to get an entrepreneur from an emerging market who, coming to your, accelerator is really small because, A, you're assuming that everyone speaks English in emerging markets and everyone has a laptop and everyone knows programming and everyone knows Solidity. And then on top of that, they're building a DApp and they're creating a startup. So that funnel, that filter is really tiny. And one of the interests using those DAO model is we want to create the condition that allow more people to be interested in developing on Web3 in emerging markets and hopefully create a startup out of it. Let's talk a little bit about the future. So one of the things we really want to do is, with the Celo on-chain fund is we want to encourage more community members to make proposals for the community fund. So if any of you are interested in Celo and you want to talk more about, ideas and proposals using the community fund, definitely reach out. We're always interested in learning more proposals. We want to encourage more DAOs to manage their allocations of the community funds. So if there's a specific DAO for a specific, doesn't have to be like a country DAO, it can be in, any kind of target DAO. We'd love to help out. And finally, we want to explore different, governance tools that around, supporting the community fund. So any kind of tooling that really improve the, the experience for people is something that we're really interested in. And here's my Twitter, my email. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions and stuff. And thank you for your time. I don't know if there's any Q&A, but if not, you can find me later. I'm around. All right, thank you.
Hi. Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to the first inaugural DAOist Lisbon. We're going to have a break until 9:20, so if you want to grab a coffee, grab a drink, a beer, a Bloody Mary, I'm not going to judge, and then come back, and then we have Mike from Brink next. So, just go off and come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Hello. We're about to start in about 2-3 minutes, so if you want to head back into the main room, then we're going to start our next session. Thank you.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Mike Calvanese. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brink, and here to talk about Brink today, decentralized automation, and how this relates to DAOs, of course. So a little bit about me. Co-founder, CEO of Brink, formerly co-founder of Level K. We were a smart contract security auditing firm. I spent a lot of time working on futarchy governance through grants from Gnosis and Aragon. So my background's technical. I'm an engineer, built a lot of DAO-related things. Futarchy governance, kind of experimental governance model. So what is decentralized automation? It's a new concept for most of you, I'm sure, and why do we need it? That's kind of going to be the focus of this talk. So, a couple questions. On chain right now, if you're talking about Ethereum transactions or really any layer 1 or layer 2 blockchain transaction, can I do something like this? Can I set a token swap to happen in the future if a price is hit in that market? And the answer is no, you cannot do this. You can't do it natively to blockchains. It's just not a property that exists. Every transaction kind of happens point in time. You submit a transaction and it is executed. So can I set a transaction to be executed when a condition is met? No, you cannot do this. It's something that cannot be done on blockchains right now. What about on L2s and side chains? Same thing. You can't do it on L2s. There's nothing different about the way that transactions work on L2s than on L1s. The only way you could do this is like basically build your own bot that like watches on-chain state and then takes some action for you, like through your address, when that on-chain state that you're looking for is met. And obviously, this is like a huge amount of effort for users. Like unless you're super technical developer, able to run your own infrastructure, then it's not something that you would do. A lot of people do it, but most like normal users of these things would not do this. So what we're building as a solution to this at Brink is what we're calling an automated execution network. And this is a pretty new concept. There are a few other teams working on this. We're actually doing a panel later today with some of the teams that are building similar solutions to this problem. But what an automated execution network basically allows you to do is conditionally deferred execution of transactions. So you can think of it like a stop-loss order and a limit order are kind of like the simplest use case of this. And that's like things that are pretty normal in like centralized exchanges, commonly used in obviously like traditional finance, but it's just not a native thing that you can do in DeFi and crypto. So there's no like fully decentralized native way to do stop loss and limit, or really any conditional action. So the automated execution network that we're building is a completely decentralized and open protocol. So any address can kind of create an action and say, I want this action to be executed in the future, and then any other address can pick that up and execute that when the conditions are met. And all of this happens through this open platform in a way that's actually gas-free, so you can create these orders or kind of like tasks to be executed in the future. To create one doesn't cost anything. You don't pay the fee until it actually gets executed. So that's a really interesting property of like automated execution networks. So that's all a lot of technical info. Like what can we actually do with this? And then we're at a DAO conference, so like how does this relate to DAOs? How can DAOs use this? Can they use it? The answer is yes, they can. So I'll just go through like a couple kind of practical use cases of this. I mentioned like limit and stop loss orders. This is like kind of the base use case for this automation. So something like you have a condition. What's the condition? The price of ETH USDC market moves like above or below a threshold. So let's say like 4,000 USDC for ETH, for one ETH. You set that condition, and then that might happen at any point in the future. It could be months from now. It could be hours. The execution event here is the swap actually occurs. So this is like you're setting this condition. You're saying, I want this to happen if this thing happens, if the price moves to this level. And then when it is executable, another party can like pick that up, basically, and it's permissionless. So anybody in the world can grab that and execute it on your behalf. So you're basically like it's an abstraction between you and the on-chain world. So you're kind of like putting this transaction up and then saying anybody can execute this for me. I give permissions for this to be executed, and then another party can come in and execute it. So that's like the simple use case is like limit order, stop loss order. But what we've built actually allows this for really any automation type and any condition. So I'll give a few more examples. This is one we hear about all the time. So deposit protection. Obviously, like tons of assets on chain are staked. Like most TVL is like staked, yield bearing in some way. So you have like something like WBTC staked on Yearn curve. You can set some condition that says like, okay, I have this stake. If the price of that WBTC relative to a stable coin like USDC moves above or below this threshold, then do this execution that basically like unstake it, swap it, and then even restake it. And that's like, kind of a complex path. Like for you to have to manage, and users are doing this now, like managing it themselves and doing this manually. Like you're watching on-chain conditions, and then when you decide to like, okay, I'm gonna move my stake somewhere, you have to do that manually. So with an automated execution network, you basically just say, okay, this is like these are my parameters. I want this execution path to happen when a price hits this threshold, and then that's just done for you, and it can be done by anyone. And then another example, like that we hear all the time, smart dollar cost averaging. This is like if you just want to kind of do like a continual buy or sell on a time interval based on where the price is. If we're going from like USDC to ETH, I want exposure to ETH, but I don't want it all at once. I want to kind of spread that out over time. Like rather than either writing a bot to do this yourself or writing your own smart contract that does this, you can just sign like a single order that says, I allow this much ETH to be swapped based on these parameters. So we have some somewhat complex parameters here. You sign that, put it out to the network, and then the network just does this for you. So those are just a few examples, but what we built at Brink is actually an open protocol, so anyone can come in and create another automation type, and we anticipate that like thousands and thousands of these will be created. So we've created just a handful of them. So how does this relate to DAOs? So everything that I described in those examples, like you can do that with an EOA, like with your regular address and private key. But we also have added support for basically like smart contract signing. So you can also create those orders with a smart contract. DAOs are smart contract-based systems. A DAO can actually create a proposal that ultimately creates an automated order. And this really like can optimize certain types of governance proposals. And I will describe just a few examples of that. So with DAO proposals, like governance-based proposals, we heard a few folks talking about that in the previous talks. Tons of DAOs have systems for kind of like token-weighted voting around treasuries, right? So you have some treasury, some fund you're managing in your DAO, and collectively the token holders in that DAO can vote on how to allocate those funds. The proposals generally take like weeks or even months in some cases, so there's a delay. So what if you want to do something like a swap? Like you have some ETH that the DAO has accumulated in a treasury, and the DAO wants to like do a buyback of their token, their native token, with that ETH. If they create a proposal, like a proposal is out there that says, okay, swap all our ETH for this token, well, that might take a month to pass, and you don't know what the market price is going to be at the end of that month. So what a DAO could do through the Brink Automated Execution Network is, instead of creating a proposal just to do the spot market swap, create a proposal to actually create a limit order instead. So the proposal says, okay, swap this amount of ETH, only if the market price for the ETH to DAO native token it meets a certain threshold or is above a certain threshold. Same thing for stop loss. They could do it below a certain threshold. They could basically set a strategy for managing that those funds, and when that proposal passes, it instead of actually doing the swap, they would just create this order that basically says, okay, someone else can farm this swap, or someone else can relay it on chain. The DAO's just kind of giving permissions for that. So that avoids this problem of like, well, what's the market price going to be when the proposal passes? Another interesting example, like dollar cost averaging of these funds. So the DAO could create a proposal to actually create a kind of permissions for doing this dollar cost averaging. So that would be like once a week it does a buyback, right? So the proposal would say allow a certain amount, like a certain percentage of our funds to be swapped on this market on a time interval of like once per week or once every 2 weeks, and maybe put some parameters around that, like if the market is between these prices, and if it goes outside of that range, then just don't do it. So just a couple examples, but the interesting thing about like the dollar cost averaging example here is that it's actually like multiple executions, like granted with one signed set of permissions. So the proposal would be like, allow this to happen over time, and then the DAO is basically saying, allow this to happen over time, and anybody can do it. We just give these like tightly scoped permissions for how to manage this, and that can be executed as many times as those permissions will allow. Permissions could have an expiry time on it as well. So we could say, just do this for the next 6 months. And then once those 6 months are over, then it's no longer executable. But up until that point, like anyone can come in and execute these things. So kind of just to recap, Brink Automation Network is a public and open network. Anybody can create orders on this network. That means any address, any smart contract as well, as long as it supports the signing EIP 1271 that we're using. That includes DAOs as well. DAOs can create orders, something that previously could not have been done. So this is very new. And not only can anyone use it to create orders, but anyone can actually pick these orders up and execute them. So completely permissionless network. Executors do get a fee for relaying the orders. There's an incentive here, but there's no protocol fee built in. It's only individual executor fee. So if you have developers here in the audience, you want to build your own executor, pull these orders off of the network, and find optimal paths to execute them, you can do that, and that's potential profit for you. No profit for the protocol, zero fee protocol. It's free to create orders, so no gas to create them. You don't pay any fee until it actually gets executed. In some cases, it might not get executed at all. If your market price doesn't get hit, if it expires, it's completely free for you. And support for DAOs, as I mentioned, that's one of the most interesting use cases, I think, for what we're building. And yeah, thank you. Forgot about Q&A. That's important. Question, yes. Yeah, okay, so the question was, like, where are orders stored, for one? Right. So the orders are actually in the case of like EOA signing, they're stored off chain with like a 1271 signed. It would be stored on chain. Yes. So it'd be like the result of the DAO proposal would basically allow validation of an order, right? So in the case of DAOs, it would be stored on chain. Yes. And then as far as like server uptime, so we're not running any servers for this. So we are running a server that and participating as an executor, but we don't have any special permissions to do that. So if you wanted to set up your own, you can do that as well. And then as for verification of whether this is trustless and working or not, like ultimately everything will get mined on chain, so you can see when it is mined. That's verifiable. But yeah, and as far as like just general verification of the system, all the code's open source, so you can look through it and see how it works. And there's a lot more technical detail. I'd love to talk to you more about it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Hello? Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Tomás Ruiz, and I work for a company called Other Plane Labs, where we build tooling and provide infrastructure for the Witnet ecosystem. And in today's talk, we are going to see the different voting mechanisms that exist in the DAO space, and how, more or less, how they work, and the current problems that you face when you use one of those solutions. And then we will also see the proof of concept that we have made to try to remove those problems and the next steps for this proof of concept. Well, what are the current voting solutions? More or less, if we group them, we can group them in two different main groups. The first one will be on-chain solutions, such as the maker one. They are the truth is they are really easy to use, and they are really intuitive. Anyone that wants to participate, or they are willing to participate, they are going to find the way. They have a nice UI, great user experience, but the final users have to deal with gas costs, and all of us now what is deal with gas costs in Ethereum right now. And then there's a second group, which are off-chain or solutions that use layer 2 solutions, such as Snapshot or Tally, that everybody knows about them. And they are different solutions than the first ones. They are also extremely easy to use, but you have more, or you have one barrier to entry. We add a step of difficulty to abroad new users. So what is the main problem here? The main problem here is, if we look for the numbers, the amount of governance tokens that are really being used for voting, for their purpose, or the main purpose of that token is not being for make proposals, to participate in the community, to help improve how we are doing the decision making. So there are a few amounts of identities that are voting at the end of the day. I know that there are small identities that are delegating their vote to bigger ones, but still is a really small amount. Also, the small holders are not incentivized to vote in terms of gas cost. And also, if we add that only a few amount of token holders are voting, even a smaller amount of users are creating proposals or participating actively in the DAOs. So all of this for newcomers is a nightmare. They have a lot of barriers to entry, and we are not making things easier for them. So what are we proposing, or what do we want to do? We want to remove the barriers to entry. We want to make things easier for newcomers, and also for the people who currently is on DAOs, but they are not voting. They are holding the token. They are coming to those conferences, but they are not actively voting on a snapshot or in the custom solution. So we want to vote, or we want to allow users to vote in a really easy and intuitive mechanism, as good as a Maker, as I saw before, or even easier. And we want to vote where everyone is, where the solutions, where the discussion is happening, such a tool like the forums, or directly where the discussion is happening. Of course, if we want to reduce the barriers to entry for newcomers, it has to be a cashless solution, because we don't want to add an extra step for them. And we are not, for the use case that we have prepared, we don't want to deal with a dispute resolution problem. There are enough protocols that have been researching that problem, such as Greros or Aragon, and we will use one of them to use it. So where everyone is hanging out? The first place that users or the newcomers go to learn something about the project, to ask questions, to know how the community is growing and what is the hot topic now, they go to Discord. And as a disclaimer here, first, I know that Discord is a centralized solution. I know that Discord is run by a private company, but seems like in the crypto community, seems like it's a trust, or they trust enough to have all their communication there. So we don't want to replace the current solutions. We know they are decentralized solutions that are good for the ecosystem. We only want to reduce barriers for newcomers or for people who is not currently voting. So we have created a Discord vote, and you can vote using reactions, Discord reactions, using thumbs up and thumbs down emojis. And everyone in the channel, everyone who has access to the channel, is going to be able to vote. So it's ideal that you are voting directly where the discussion is happening. Also, when you initialize the vote, you can specify which role will be able to create proposals. So in the middle of the discussion, anyone can create a proposal directly. And for this use case, we are going to use Aragon Govern. And if the proposal gets enough voting, the proposal will be forwarded on-chain and trigger the action. And to reduce the centralization in a transparent way, of course, for a transparent way to the users, to the final users, we are going to use Witnet as a decentralized Oracle network solution to try to reduce the centralization that we are adding using Discord. So this is how this look like using the Aragon Witnet integration bot. And imagine that you want to create a proposal for buying a piece of land on Decentraland or in the sandbox or in any place. And if the proposal gets a majority of positive votes, the bot will resolve the voting and will trigger the execution. And well, how this is work under the hood? First, we have to initialize the vote and invite the different monitors or different reactions monitors that are going to retrieve the information for us. And once we have configured the DAO that we are going to use, the Aragon DAO that we are going to use, the bot is going to start listening for different proposals, for the messages of the channel where the users are going to create the proposals. Once they get a proposal, the time block has to be specified, and once the time block is once the time block is specified, they will retrieve the information using a data request that we have previously created, adding different sources, the different sources that are the reactions monitors that anyone could run. And with Net, the Oracle network will do this magic, retrieving the information from the different servers, aggregate the information, and finally deliver the result to the bot. And when the result is replied to the bot, if the resolution is okay, they will trigger. We will connect the Aragon contracts, and the transactions will be done. So, what are the next steps that we are thinking to do, or what are the purpose that we want to achieve with this bot? First, we are thinking in an integration because we think that this bot is, as I said, is not an ideal solution for replace custom solutions. This solution is useful for now how the community thinks or how the community is evolving to approach a certain solution. So it's great for both signaling. For instance, in the proof of humanity community, it could be great if someone can make a proposal and know if the community if that proposal has enough power to move forward to another or a more decentralized voting platform. We also were thinking about trying to integrate our solution with a snapshot bot. They have a bot that relays every proposal to your Discord server, and it could be great if we could integrate that with our solution. And also we are thinking in implement token-gated channels, so anyone that has access to a certain Discord server, as we can prove that we own a certain amount of tokens, and those tokens allow us to participate in an existing Discord channel, and vote only if we prove that we are token owners. And also we want to support weighted votes. So if you have a different amount than me, your vote will be related with the amount of tokens that you have. And well, at the end of the day, the thing that we are going to do is try to reduce the barriers to entry for newcomers. We are trying to engage the current community that is not participating, that is here, that all of us are interested in the DAO community, but a lot of people is not voting or is not participating actively. So if we really want to make a change, or if we really want to improve the decision making in DAOs in general, we have to make things easier for newcomers. We have to engage more people or more communities to bring them into the ecosystem, and we have to make the things easier for them. And of course, as I have said, the solution is meant to be used with other solutions such as a snapshot or even a custom solution. And if you are interested in the bot and you want to learn more or try to use it, you can find the code just below.
So we have some time for questions.
Nope.
Are there examples where this has been used?
Sorry?
Have there been examples where this has been used already?
Is there
Like, are there any communities where you've used it and done a vote?
It's not deployed on mainnet, but we have an integration with using Aragon Govern to vote on their Discord channel, and we have deployed already there, and it can be used from there, and there are also other people who is running the vote by their own, but we don't know exactly the forks that they have made. We know that there are people using the fork solution, but we only use it in our over integration.
Questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sounds good. Hello. Shall we wait? Can we start? Yeah. So just tell it something. No. You speak, you can probably take it there, right? Yeah, sounds sure. Good. All right. Well, hello everyone. Really nice to be here. Super nice to be at the DAOist. Thank you for organizing all this. I'm Nathan van der Eyden from Snapshot. This is my colleague Aviu from Starkware. And today we want to make quite a special presentation. We're going to talk about StarkVote, a trustless voting system. So, slide. Oh, it's me. Even easier. So, first, well, I'm biased, obviously, but voting is quite important. We wanted to kind of build a voting framework that's fit for the DAO age, because obviously we have a very special vision with DAOs. We want to kind of rebuild organizations, make them networks, kind of fight hierarchy and all that weight that it creates. And a big part of doing that is creating DAO tooling that can support this vision. So today we have a few problems with on-chain voting to realize that vision. Obviously the first one, you all know about it, it's gas fees. Voting on-chain is expensive. Like on an individual level, voting on-chain can be easily $15, which has many problematic side effects. It leads to lower participation, you have lower quorum, so your kind of ideal of decentralization and true decision-making from your entire community is kind of hurt by this price. So I think one of the most important parts of increasing participation in your DAO or in your DeFi protocol in your community is reducing the costs of voting. This is something you see even in modern democracies. If you kind of look at in the US what's happening, you see lines of people who are waiting to vote, hour-long lines, and obviously you know what that does to voting turnout. That's terrible. So there's kind of a balance between, on the one hand, your perceived impact on an election, on a vote, and on the other, your perceived costs. And it's quite hard to increase your perceived impact, but it's actually relatively easy to reduce your costs. And that has the same effect on participation. The second problem with on-chain voting is more on a system level. So there's a little bit of code attached to all ERC20 tokens that are used for governance. And this little bit of code is basically used when any token is transferred. The token contract remembers in a way where the token was. And this is key for on-chain voting because any vote is attached to a certain block number. Any proposal is, at this point in the blockchain, who had which tokens. So all these tokens kind of have this little part attached to it, which is like the history, in a way, of the token, which is very useful, obviously, for voting. But this little bit of code, this little bit of additional code incurs a cost. Like estimates put it around like a few dollars every transaction, but that actually adds up pretty quickly when you know that most big tokens like Uni or Compound or everything have this little bit attached to it. Actually, this is the code attached to the Uni token, which create this extra cost. So a few dollars on each transfer, I'm going to let you do the math. That's actually quite expensive. So today you can have two options for voting. You can either vote on chain, and voting on chain has this really kind of built-in security of Ethereum. Everything is stored on the blockchain. You've got trustless settlement of these votes. By trustless settlement, we mean that the outcome of the vote creates a reaction without any kind of human involvement. But the problem is you're paying these high gas fees. You'll have this extra gas cost for transfers, even transfers that have nothing to do with governance. And at the same time, this leads to like the lower participation, which is absolutely what we want to avoid for DAOs and DeFi protocols. And your second option is voting off-chain. So that's what we've been working on with Snapshot. And the great advantage of this is obviously that it's free to cast votes. It's free to create proposals. It's much more flexible in the ways we calculate voting power. So you have all these really nice advantages. But the problem is that it still means that your votes are going to be stored and indexed off-chain. And that creates a problem when you want to resolve on-chain for those off-chain votes. Because you get into a dilemma. Either you need trusted actors, trusted humans to relay the results of the vote on-chain, or you need Oracle-based settlement, which is very interesting. That's actually a solution that people at Gnosis have been working on quite a lot through the reality.eth Oracle. And basically, this Oracle allows you to trustlessly resolve on-chain, settle on-chain votes off-chain. The problem is that this Oracle is based on game theory. It can't actually read on-chain balances. It can't verify if people actually had the votes, if the vote was actually what is relayed on-chain, but rather, it's a game theory thing. People are betting on an outcome, and the largest bet takes it. So that dilemma is either trusted on-chain, trusted relays, or trustless relays based on this Oracle. Obviously, the perfect voting framework is pros of both. The perfect voting framework makes it really accessible, really easy, completely free to vote, create proposals, but at the same time kind of brings you this trustless settlement on-chain of votes, and also the very important verification of on-chain balances to make sure that everything is clear and solid. Until now, this was not possible. This is why I think what we're bringing you today is very exciting. Using StarkNet, basically we can reduce the costs of verifying balances on-chain and of indexing votes on-chain to really, a negligible amount, an amount so negligible that will take care of it for you, and that's StarkVote. Basically, using StarkNet's I think the best word is computational magic. We can finally bring these two together, really cheap on-chain voting. So without further ado, I will let Aviu talk to you a little bit more about StarkVote.
Thanks. Hi. Let's spend 10 more seconds on this beautiful meme. I kind of felt that it's necessary to include it in the presentation, especially because I want to explain in the next 10 minutes or so about how StarkVote works. So it's going to be a little bit technical, but I think that we can go through it in 10 minutes. Let's start. Okay, so first of all, what StarkVote brings to the table, as Nathan mentioned, our two goals are the following ones that you see here: to enable inexpensive, trustless voting to be settled on-chain. So we want voting to be accessible for everyone, but we don't want to pay the settlement price on-chain, and we don't want to involve trust. So that's the first goal. And the second goal is a byproduct. We want to remove the need for those expensive checkpoints. It's like you can think of it as a huge overhead on tokens that are used for voting, and we want to remove these. So those are like the two main goals of StarkVote. In addition, we target backward compatibility, because we understand that if we create a solution that you have to change your token contract for it, or you have to change the way that you sign, or to lock tokens, this is not going to work. So we want something that will be easily adaptable, and this is StarkVote. You have full backward compatibility. You don't need to do anything in order to use this solution. So to understand how StarkVote works, you need to understand storage proofs, you need to know what StarkNet is, and then to understand the mechanism. So this is exactly what you're going to see now. Did someone hear before about storage proofs? I guess few did, right? So the general idea of storage proofs is that Ethereum did this wonderful thing that you see here, and in every block there is basically a root of the latest state that the block knows. So there is a commitment for the state of Ethereum in each and every block, and this state includes the storage of all contracts. So of course you can always store stuff in the storage and access them, but there is a better, cheaper way using storage proofs to do that. And the way that it works is as follows. Every block contains this state root that we mentioned, and this state root is a commitment for the state. So if I know the right path to the storage contract, and if I know how the storage contract is stored inside the state, I can take out a commitment for every balance in every token contract, which is great. basically, if you see this slide, this draw, I think it's almost as old as Ethereum. But Ethereum actually brought this new idea of putting state root inside the blocks, and this enables me to say, hey, look, at block 175223, account 175, let's say it was Nathan account, held 27 in his balance, and then one block later, it held 45. And I don't really need to access the storage for it to verify it. It's enough if I know the state root, and I can already verify that Nathan had 27, and then he has now 45. And we can use this to in our voting app, right? So if until now we had to access the storage for every verification of every balance, this would be expensive. This is a significant part of the cost in voting. And we don't want to do that. So instead, let's use storage proofs to verify the balance of Nathan in every block that we care about. And we just store one time the state root for the relevant block. Let's say block 6 million is the relevant block. We store the root one time, and then every time we want to verify any balance, we can, using the path in the Merkle tree and the state root, we can verify each and every balance. And that's the secret sauce, if you may. So, okay, this was exist since the inception of Ethereum. So why nobody used it up until today? Obviously, you can guess the reason, or one of the reasons is that it's pretty expensive to send those long paths to Ethereum. If you want to send now for every balance that you want to verify, you want to send several kilobytes or tens of kilobytes of information, it doesn't make sense because it's going to cost you almost as much as accessing storage, and maybe more. So it's not feasible to use it on Ethereum today. And this is where, basically going back to the meme, when we put StarkNet in the picture, it brings us the ability to do these kind of things. So just a couple of words on StarkNet, because I do want to present it to those who are not familiar. So StarkNet is a Zk rollup. It's a layer 2 of Ethereum, and I will explain in 2 sentences what do I mean by Zk rollup that is a layer 2. It means that every state transition of this network is verified with proofs, and every time there is a change in the layer 2 state, then it's reported but as on-chain data to Ethereum. So it's much, much, much less effective and can do many more things that can't be done today on Ethereum. And it can do all kinds of things, but one of the main things that we care about is that you can send messages to layer 1. So you can do some computation on layer 2 and then just report the result to layer 1. And we are going to use this. StarkNet Alpha is basically alive on testnet since June, and as you can see here, it's going to be on mainnet. We are going to deploy the alpha version on mainnet already next month in November. So the reason the storage proofs are so cheap and easy on StarkNet is because computation and data are very cheap on StarkNet. So this whole idea of sending long Merkle passes or computing a lot of hashes or verify signatures, it costs much, much less to do it on StarkNet than on Ethereum. And in addition, something that if you will dig, you will find that is not that simple. It supports the crypto primitives that Ethereum already uses today, like Ketchup and Ethereum signatures. So the way to enable verification of storage proofs is pretty straightforward. If you already have Ketchup, if you already have Ethereum signatures, you can easily verify storage proofs, and you can easily verify votes on StarkNet. And layer 1 messages gives you the ability to do backward compatibility, right? So you don't need to ask people to read the layer 2 state. You can just report the results back to layer 1. So that's the whole magic, right? If I have to summarize the way that it works, even that I think at this point you can figure it out yourself. Every time there is a new proposal that is generated in Snapshot, you can store the state root for the relevant block. It can be the block when the proposal was created or any other block in the future. But that will be the point in time where your balance matters, right? And from this point on, you use only this root to verify any balance that you wish to. So users, they just vote the same way they vote today on Snapshot. They just sign off chain and submit the result of their vote. They cast the vote to Snapshot, and the votes plus storage proofs are being generated off-chain and sent to layer 2 StarkNet contract that knows how to verify the storage proof. It knows to say, okay, Nathan had 45 in this vote, so this is what I'm going to count for him. It knows how to count the result and eventually report the results to layer 1. Everything is done in a trustless manner, so there is never a point of trust in a way that you can never put a balance that didn't exist. You can never fake a signature, obviously. And then every layer contract that is interested can read the result in a trustless way. That's it. That's basically how the magic works. Here is a complex diagram that says basically everything that I just said. Right? You can see what you already familiar with the snapshot interface on the left, and then there is a backend part that generates the storage proofs for every balance of every user that cast a vote, and report at the end of the day report the votes to layer 2, which computes the total result and send it to layer 1. Now I'm hiding all kind of other cool stuff that it enables, because it enables layer 1 smart contract to vote as well. It can enable users to vote directly on layer 2, hence moving forward it will be more censorship resistant than today. But those are stuff that will come later. We want to start first with a trustless version of Snapshot that we can use as early as the end of the year. And that's basically the last slide. Nathan, maybe you want to come say a few words about that. We expect to release it by the end of 2021, and we're really interested in people to come talk to us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to try out StarkVote, and I think it's going to be really important and interesting for any DAOs, please join the discussion. You can get in on Discord. The link is on our Twitter. We really want feedback. We want to hear from you what you like about this, what would you like to see in the final implementations of StarkVote. So please, all the feedback is truly appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, so we got time for questions, everyone.
Yeah.
So that's fucking cool.
Thank you.
So thinking about like the compound fork and like in using compound governance and that being trustless way to move tokens around or use treasury or change smart contracts. Thinking about this and the way that the layer 1 can point to layer 2, it's basically identical, right? There's like no security trade-off that you're making.
Yeah, I think the main maybe the main thing that we are still not enabling in the way that we would like to is the censorship resistance, because ideally we would also want that everyone will be able to vote by themselves if they wish to, and we understand that it will take some more stages, but except that, yes, you have no compromises on security, on trust, except that. Yeah,
that's really cool.
In the graphic before, you showed snapshot and relayers. Can you talk about the backend relayers?
Yeah, I think I can say a couple of words. Basically, the goal of this backend is to enable at the end of the day for every user to generate a storage proof for its own balance. Now, this is something that is going to happen off-chain, and ideally it's something that should happen on the application level. Like, if Snapshot wants to support it, StarkNet is a network, so there is a smart contract that everyone can read, but the input to the smart contract is going to be storage proofs. And if you want to generate the right input, you need to know the structure of your token contract and all kind of things. So at this point, it's Snapshot's role to generate those proofs. I don't know what exactly their plans to the futures with this, but the idea here is that we know to generate those proofs for every storage, for every token contract, and potentially you don't have to, you can use it for your own token implementation, right? It doesn't have to be Snapshot generating those storage proofs for everyone. I hope I answered the question. If not, you're more than welcome to catch us after the.
Sure.
Hi guys, thanks for the presentation. I'm John from Bogdani. Would this system allow
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Yes. Sorry. I'm John from Bogdani. Thanks for the presentation. We've been using storage proof since May in one of our products in our own voice, so it's really cool. I want to ask you, would this system allow for anonymous voting also?
It did came up. Like at this point, we don't target, like in the first phases for sure, we don't target private voting or anonymous voting, but we did have some thoughts about how to do that. Obviously, we will have to change the structure, and to keep it backward compatible will be harder because then at least the prover knows the details of the votes. So I would answer in two parts. The first phase, you can imagine semi-private voting, meaning you don't necessarily have to publish the balances or the vote, and you can still be sure that the result is correct. But some entities did view the data, like snapshots that generate the storage proofs and the prover. At the very least, they did see pieces from the data. I can think of a future version that will be completely or more anonymous, but it's not what we are targeting at this.
Yeah, if I can add something about that, it's definitely something we're looking at, but at the moment we want to do it right. We don't want to just hide in our front end and do like this semi-anonymous voting. We want to do it right. So this is definitely something that we'll be able to think about a lot more now that we are working with StarkNet.
Thank you for the question. It was a pleasure to present here, and we're very happy to be here.
Supposed to be on this.
Yes. You can connect to. Have you connected up? Okay, hello everyone. Right now it should be 1KX, but because of some complications, they're not here. And instead we have Enzyme Finance with Mona.
I don't think it's connected. Okay, hi everyone. Oh, no? Sorry. Hi everyone. So I'm filling in for 1KX, but I don't